Judging is a natural part of human life. Sometimes, it's so automatic that we don't even notice. We form opinions about people, situations, and even ourselves, labeling things as right or wrong, good or bad. But have you ever stopped to consider the impact this habit has on your life and relationships? Judgment often distances us from inner peace and genuine connection with others. In this video, we'll explore how Buddhism approaches the practice of non-judgment, how we can cultivate acceptance and respect, and the techniques that can help us break free from this habit. Together, we'll discover how these practices can transform our lives and pave the way to emotional and spiritual freedom. In Buddhism, judgment is viewed as a manifestation of mental afflictions, such as attachment to the ego and ignorance about the true nature of reality. When we judge, we reinforce a narrow, dualistic perspective that traps us in patterns of suffering. On the other hand, Buddhism teaches that acceptance and respect are powerful tools to dissolve this duality and cultivate both internal and external harmony. Buddhism explains that judgment arises from the ego and mental afflictions, known as kleshas. Among these, ignorance, desire, and aversion are seen as the primary causes of suffering. Judgment stems from this triad, particularly from ignorance of the true nature of reality. When we judge, we tend to divide the world into rigid categories, good or bad, right or wrong. This dualistic view is a mental construct that disconnects us from the interconnected essence of life. Judgment creates barriers between us and others, reinforcing ego attachment, which insists on placing us at the center of experience and as arbiters of what is acceptable or not. Buddha often warned against the trap of fixed opinions in his teachings. In the Kalama Sutra, he encouraged his disciples not to blindly accept anything, not even his own words, but to examine everything with wisdom and compassion. This includes practicing the ability to look beyond labels and limited perceptions. Moreover, judgment can be seen as a distraction from mindfulness. When we judge, we miss the opportunity to observe reality as it is, without bias. Mindfulness teaches us to remain present with an open mind, avoiding the trap of labeling our experiences. Finally, Buddhism recognizes that as long as we are caught in a cycle of samsara, we will be tempted to judge. However, through practice, we can cultivate a more balanced mind, capable of observing without reacting automatically. This shift not only reduces suffering but also fosters harmony in our relationships. In Buddhism, acceptance is not passivity or resignation, but a state of full and compassionate awareness. It is the practice of observing reality as it is, without resisting or trying to change it immediately. This attitude is crucial for overcoming suffering because, according to Buddhism, much of our suffering arises from resisting what is. Acceptance does not mean agreeing with or approving everything that happens, but recognizing that experiences are transient and shaped by causes and conditions. This perspective helps us understand that life's circumstances, no matter how challenging, are part of a larger flow of interconnectedness. When we judge a situation or a person, we create mental resistance that intensifies our suffering. Acceptance, on the other hand, dissolves this resistance. Acceptance is not limited to the external world. It is also a powerful internal practice. We are often our own harshest critics, judging our flaws, blaming ourselves for past mistakes, and setting unattainable expectations. Buddhism invites us to treat ourselves with the same compassion we extend to others. By practicing self-compassion, we realize that all beings, including ourselves, share the same imperfections and limitations. Accepting our weaknesses does not mean complacency, but recognizing our humanity. This creates space for genuine transformation, free of guilt or excessive self-criticism. Accepting others as they are is a profound act of respect for each being's journey. Buddhism teaches that everyone is walking their own path, influenced by past experiences, karma, and conditioning. Instead of judging, we can develop compassion, understanding that each person faces challenges we may not fully comprehend. This acceptance dissolves barriers and fosters a sense of connection. Rather than focusing on differences, we can remember the interdependence that unites us. The practice of acceptance, therefore, is an antidote to judgment and an essential step in cultivating respect and harmony in relationships. In Buddhism, respect is seen as an expression of the deep understanding of the interdependence that connects all beings. Nothing exists in isolation. Every life is sustained by a complex network of causes and conditions. This perspective shows us that harming another being ultimately harms ourselves. Respecting others, therefore, is not just an ethical choice but a spiritual practice that reflects the understanding that we all share the same universal essence and the same potential for enlightenment. When we recognize this, respect ceases to be a conscious effort and becomes a natural expression of our connection to the whole. Buddha's teachings guide us to cultivate respect as part of the path of Dharma. Buddhist ethics, exemplified in the 5 precepts, invite us to act in ways that protect the dignity and well-being of all beings. These precepts include not causing harm, being honest, acting with integrity, and avoiding actions that impair mental clarity. These practices are not merely moral guidelines, but expressions of respect for life in all its forms. They reinforce the idea that treating others with consideration and kindness aligns us with the universal truth. Respect is also closely tied to the practice of compassion and nonviolence. By striving to respect others, we learn to listen attentively, without prejudice, and to offer kindness without expecting anything in return. This respect goes beyond words or actions. It manifests in our willingness to acknowledge the intrinsic value of every being, regardless of their differences or choices. It is a practice that breaks down barriers, fosters mutual understanding, and strengthens our bonds with others. Integrating respect into our daily lives means applying these teachings to even the simplest interactions, truly listening to someone, treating everyone equally, and recognizing others' dignity even when we disagree. Ultimately, this practice transforms not only our relationships but also connects us to the greater flow of Dharma, allowing us to walk with greater harmony and wisdom. Overcoming judgment is a process that requires awareness, patience, and practice. Buddhism offers concrete tools to transform the habit of judging into an attitude of acceptance and compassion. The foundation of this transformation lies in mindfulness, which teaches us to observe our thoughts and feelings without identifying with them. One of the most effective practices for cultivating acceptance and dissolving judgments is loving-kindness meditation. This technique invites us to direct thoughts of love and compassion toward ourselves, those we care for, strangers, and eventually even those we find challenging or with whom we have conflicts. Including everyone in our practice of loving kindness helps us recognize our shared humanity and begin to dissolve the internal barriers that fuel judgment. This is not just a meditative practice, it's a training of the heart that gradually reflects in our everyday actions. Another powerful approach is to reflect on the impact of judgment on our lives and those of others. Judgment often stems from a need to control or feel superior, but ultimately leads to disconnection and suffering. When we understand this, we can start questioning our automatic patterns. Asking yourself, is this attitude bringing me closer to peace or taking me further away from it, is a simple yet effective way to bring clarity and redirect your thoughts. Conscious self-reflection, done with compassion, reinforces the habit of viewing people and situations with greater equanimity. Buddhist stories also offer practical wisdom for overcoming judgment. One well-known tale is that of Buddha and the man who insulted him repeatedly. Instead of reacting with anger or judgment, Buddha remained peaceful, demonstrating that he did not have to accept the insults as truth. This story reminds us that by letting go of judgment, we choose emotional freedom. It inspires us to practice patience and compassion even in challenging situations, turning conflicts into opportunities for growth. By integrating these practices into our daily lives, we start to see that judgment is a habit that can be dismantled. Each moment in which we choose acceptance, love, and compassion is a step toward a calmer mind and more harmonious relationships. Over time, these choices not only transform our way of thinking but also create a positive impact on our environment and the people around us. Judgment is a deep-seated habit we all share to some degree. It arises from our tendency to categorize the world and protect our personal perceptions. However, as we've seen, Buddhism offers a liberating alternative, the practice of acceptance and respect. By letting go of judgment, we make room for a more peaceful mind and a more compassionate heart, connecting us more authentically to the world around us. Practicing acceptance does not mean agreeing with everything or ignoring injustices. Instead, it's about learning to observe reality as it is, without resistance. This practice teaches us to embrace our own imperfections and those of others, understanding that everyone is navigating their journeys under circumstances we may never fully comprehend. Respect is the practical expression of this acceptance. It acknowledges the intrinsic value of every being and reminds us of the interdependence that unites us. Buddhist practices like mindfulness, loving-kindness, and reflecting on our mental patterns offer tangible ways to overcome judgment. Each small choice to accept instead of judge is a step toward inner peace and stronger relationships. As Buddha taught, true freedom comes from a mind that does not cling, resist, or hold back from choosing love. Finally, if you wish to continue learning and deepening your journey of personal and spiritual development, subscribe to the channel. Let's keep exploring together these practices that bring us closer to a fuller and more harmonious life. Thank you for being here, and may you find peace and clarity in every step of your journey.